Welcome to one of this year's most challenging races, where the combination of high speed and complex corners makes this one of the drivers' favourite tracks. It's time for the Japanese Grand Prix. 18 corners make up a lap of the incredible figure-of-8 Suzuka circuit, with 10 to the right and 8 to the left, for a distance of 3.6 miles. Average lap speeds around here are fairly quick. If it stays dry, then expect somewhere in the region of 136 miles per hour. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Oscar Piastri lines up on pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Russell, Lando Norris, and Tsunoda, Antonelli, Leclerc, Hadjar, and Fernando Alonso, Lawson, Stroll, Carlos Sainz, and Albon, Ocon, Bortoletto, Pierre Gasly, and Ollie Behrman. Doohan and Nico Hülkenberg rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. And alongside me in the commentary box today, a man who I always look up to, which is easier said than done, Anthony Davidson. Glorious Suzuka. It's a bit like Silverstone, an iconic track for which we couldn't have an F1 season without it. And so much for the drivers to think about around here.
Absolutely, Crofty. The only figure-of-8 circuit that we have on the calendar, and you kind of wonder, why don't we have more? Because it's such a good format. The drivers love this track. It's got a great flow to it, a fantastic circuit. Not the best for overtaking, but my goodness, from inside the car, it's a real treat for the drivers.
Okay, give me a quick radio check, please. Radio check.
Radio check.
Okay, DRS is now available. Look out for a bit of understeer when trailing the car ahead. They're going to be giving off dirty air, which is going to affect our tyres, so try to get past. Brilliant, nice move, keep going. That was the fastest lap of the race, keep this up, well done. Great work, that's a new fastest lap of the race. Absolutely awesome. Just amazing, mate. Well done.
Esteban Ocon sees the checkered flag and will stand on the top step of the podium. Très bon.
You always look back at a race like this and think, if I'd just made that mistake there or looked up here, there would have been contact. And every one of those overtakes is a moment where you have to absolutely nail it, perfect it, and that's exactly what they're able to do today. Great stuff indeed.
What a day it's been for Formula One, and what a day it's been for these three drivers. Time for the podium celebrations. Time for our drivers to celebrate. And that is the top step and the top spot for Esteban Ocon. After an event like that, who knows what the sport has in store for us next time out? Be sure to join us once again as we continue to bring you all the excitement of Formula One. Welcome along everyone to Silverstone. Britain has returned the highest number of F1 World Champions of any country that's taken part in this glorious sport. We take our racing very seriously here, as you can tell here today at the British Grand Prix. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Hamilton, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, and Tsunoda, Piastri, Norris, Albon, and Isaac Hadjar, Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, and Lawson, Behrman, Doohan, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Nico Hülkenberg. Gasly and Esteban Ocon lines up at the back of the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. And striding into our commentary box to join us today, the man, the myth, the legend, Anthony Davidson. I know what we've got to do before the start of today's race, but what about our driver? What do the final hours look like for them?
Well, for them, you've got your pre-race rituals that you go through. You see different drivers that, some have got their headphones on, they're listening to the music. Some drivers really absorb the energy from the crowd and they're there waving to them. Other drivers, they go within themselves. They chat to their engineers, absorbing that information, that vital information that you need to carry you through the race. And, those pre-race rituals are essential to making things systematic. We do a lot of Grand Prix in a season, and the more systematic you can be, the easier you are within that environment.
Radio check, radio check.
Radio check.
now use DRS. DRS now available. Watch out for understeer in the wake of the car ahead. Try to get past as quickly as you can. Push, push. Okay, good work. Great pass. Okay, so we're leading our teammate by 4.7 seconds. Good job. That was the fastest lap of the race so far.
Yes, guys! Yes!
C'est magnifique! It's Esteban Ocon, and it's a win for the Frenchman.
And that's 2 wins in a row now. It's the start of potentially something special, but they can't get ahead of themselves just yet. It's a long way to go.
From lights out to the checkered flag, this is what they're racing for. It's points and a trip to the podium. Esteban wins today. He takes the top step of the podium. Brilliant celebrations and many congratulations. Well, that was certainly an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon. F1 is back in the United States of America. We're here in the Sunshine State for a race that's fast becoming a fan favourite. It's time for the Miami Grand Prix. A lap of the Miami Grand Prix features 3.36 miles of track around the Hard Rock Stadium, and 19 corners make up the Miami International Autodrome, which will challenge the drivers in a tight wheel-to-wheel race. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, and Andrea Kimi Antonelli completes the front row. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Piastri, Tsunoda, Max Verstappen and Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, Sainz and Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso, Lawson, Isaac Hadjar and Albon, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Jack Doohan and Esteban Ocon, Behrman and Gabriel Bortoleto rounds off the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. And alongside me today is a man who needs no introduction, but I'll try anyway. It's Ant Davidson. Now, you're the racing driver in this partnership, so tell us about this racing driver. Put us in their shoes. How are they going to be feeling?
Well, you've got to be prepared, Crofty. Before you even step foot inside the car, you've got to know, you've got to have a pre-race game plan. You've watched videos before you get into the car of previous races gone by. You know where you have to place your car if X, Y or Z happens in front of you or behind you. So having this clear game plan is absolutely essential before you get in the car.
Okay, mate, radio check, please. Radio check.
Radio check.
DRS now enabled. DRS enabled. experience some understeer now that you're in the wake of the car ahead. Try to get past as soon as possible. Good job, nice overtake. That was the fastest lap of the race. Keep this up. Well done. Great work. That's a new fastest lap of the race. Good job. That was the fastest lap of the race so far.
Esteban Ocon can see the checkered flag. Victory is his.
And 3 wins in a row now, of course, Croft. You've thrown the gauntlet down. The drivers are out there now. They realise that they are the target. They're the ones to beat. They've got the energy, they've got the momentum on their side.
It's what every driver imagines when they start out on their long road towards Formula One. And for our lucky 3 today, here's the podium waiting for them. And that is the top step and the top spot for Esteban Ocon. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One. It's race day here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, a track that's certainly seen a fair share of electrifying races over the past few years, and there are no doubts that today's race will be just as brilliant. It's an updated track at Catalunya, and the popular opinion in the paddock is that we never wanted the chicane in the first place. That's now been gone, the final corner is much faster, and at 2.9 miles and 14 turns, we await the Spanish Grand Prix. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Yuki Tsunoda lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Russell, Verstappen, and Sir Lewis Hamilton, and Piastri, Antonelli, Leclerc, Hadjar, and Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso, Albon, Carlos Sainz, and Lawson, Doohan, Behrman, Nico Hülkenberg, and Esteban Ocon. Gasly and Gabriel Bortoleto rounds off the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. And joining me in the commentary box this afternoon, the First Lady of World Motorsports, Naomi Schiff. Now, Ant, you always tell me you know Barcelona almost as well as you know the back of your hand. Given the amount of testing that goes on here and the amount of laps that you and all the other drivers have done, what are the challenges that are left when it comes to the race?
Well, this certainly is a favourite track when it comes to testing. And I'll tell you why that is. It's because it offers up so much variation. You've got corners that are fast, that are slow, that are long, that are short. So there's a lot to think about and a lot to work with. But T9 is one of my personal favourites because it is so challenging. Every time you get there, you think, should I lift or should I stay flat? Well, I tell you, stay flat. Commit.
Radio check, please. Radio check.
Radio check.
Okay, DRS is now available. Okay, good work. Great pass. That was the fastest lap of the race. Keep this up. Well done. Great work. That's a new fastest lap of the race. Good job, that was the fastest lap of the race so far.
What a weekend, what a weekend. Finally what we deserve. Yes!
Thank you for everything you've done to the team. We really enjoyed it.
Esteban Ocon sees the checkered flag and will stand on the top step of the podium. Très bon. It's been a hard afternoon of brilliant racing, but now it's time for some proper celebrations. The podium awaits. Esteban wins today. He takes the top step of the podium. Brilliant celebrations and many congratulations. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.